I'm here today with Bob Burg. Bob's a friend. He's an internationally known speaker. He speaks all over the world, shared the platform with many notable people and celebrities, and even a former president of the United States. He is a best-selling author. He has written books like the book Endless Referrals. The one that got enormous attention is the GoGiveEr, which continues to give and go everywhere. And then his latest book, which we're going to talk about as well, Turning Adversaries into Allies. So it's great to have you here, Bob, and I'm excited to have the opportunity to talk with you.
Thank you, Skip. Likewise.
I want to talk about something first about service and giving, because service and giving is in everything that you do. It kind of pervades your work, giving to others, the GoGiveEr. How do you encourage individuals to have a giving service mentality? I mean, some people have it, they read it, and they're like, oh yeah, this is me. And others might struggle with that. So how do you encourage somebody to have more of that attitude to give?
Well, in a sense, I think it's understanding why it's as good for the giver as the receiver. And as you know, it's not a matter of giving or receiving, it's both. It's giving and receiving. In the book, The GoGiveEr, there are 5 laws. The first is the law of value, which talks about always being focused on giving value to others. At the same time, law number 5 is the law of receiving, so you need to be able to do both. But I think the giving mindset is one in which you see that first, you're providing great value to the world, and you're also providing great value to yourself as a result. As you know, we say that money is simply an echo of value. It's the thunder to value's lightning. Now, that's not to say you give only to receive. No, as one of the characters in the book said, giving is not a strategy, it's a way of life. You give because it's who you are, and because it's who you are, it's what you do. So there's got to be a congruency. You've got to really value giving value to others, taking the focus off yourself and placing it on them. As you know, though, there's nothing about that is sacrificial. There's nothing about it that's being a martyr. There's nothing about it that means you're being a doormat. Fortunately, life seems to work better. We like to say that shifting your focus from getting to giving, in this case giving meaning constantly and consistently providing value to others, is not only a nice way to live life, but it's a very profitable way as well. So it's great that it works both ways.
Interesting. Bob, what about a leader? Speak to the leader who's running a company, a small organization, and they want to encourage that giving mentality everywhere. They don't just want a few givers, they want the company to be known that way, to provide more value. How would you speak to that person to encourage that in the team, culture change?
Sure. Well, first, we pretty much understand that leadership comes from the top, which doesn't mean you can't be a leader anywhere. Friends of mine, Mark Sanborn and Robin Sharma, have both written wonderful books talking about the very fact that you don't have to have a title or a position to be a leader. Anyone can lead from anywhere. But generally speaking, a culture takes form from the top down, from that leader down. And that leader has to not just talk about a thing, they've got to, again, act congruently with that message. So the first thing they need to do, aside from being sold on it themselves and being willing to keep repeating the message, not just in their words, not just in what they do, but also in who they are, right? They also need to tap into why those in the organization would want to change. Dale Carnegie, in his classic, How to Win Friends and Influence People, he made great points throughout that book, of course. It's a classic. But I think his underlying premise was when he said that ultimately people do things for their reasons, not for our reasons. So to me, the great leader, the great influencer, and as John Maxwell says, leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And so to me, the great leader, the great influencer continually ask themselves, how does what I'm asking this other person or these other people to do, how does it align with their goals? How does what I'm asking this person to do or these people to do, how does it align with their wants, their needs, their desires, with their values?
Changing that focus again.
Now exactly. Now, when we ask ourselves these questions intelligently and thoughtfully and authentically, not as a way to manipulate another person or people to doing our will, but as a way to build everyone what happens is we come a lot further, a lot closer to getting that buy-in, so to speak, that commitment rather than compliance. And when it comes to leadership and influence, one of my great mentors, Dondi Scumaci, I think says it so well. She says, compliance will never take you where commitment can go.
I like that.
Yeah. So it's what. So again, we focus on them and how it ties in. Now we have that situation where people are willing to buy into it and commit to it. Then it's up to the leader to keep that going.
Great. Well, you referenced Dale Carnegie's book, and I've been telling people that your new book, Adversaries into Allies, is like a modern day how to win friends and influence people.
I take that as a great compliment.
Yeah, it is. It's filled with great information. If you haven't read this book yet and you're looking at it, give an example. What's one way that one technique of taking an adversary and turning them into an ally? What would you share?
Well, one is immediately resetting the frame. What is a frame? Well, a frame is the foundation from which everything else evolves. So if you've been able to set a proper frame, one of kindness, one of collaboration, there's a much better chance that it's going to end up as you would want it to. But what if that person comes to the table, so to speak, in not a helpful frame, in a counterproductive frame? And I think about a time when I was pulling into a parking space and I was not paying attention as I should have, and I accidentally nearly clipped a guy as he was getting out the driver's side of his car. And it was my fault, but he looked at me, and boy, he shot me the nastiest look, Skip. I mean, it was one of those if looks could kill, right? Did
you say, here's the GoGiveEr,
right.
here's the adversaries and allies?
No, what happened was when he did that, I could have reacted as he did in that anger, and that what are you looking at? Well, watch where you're going. Well, you look right, and we know how those things work, right? But instead, what I did is he came at it with an anger frame, a hateful frame. You couldn't blame him. I mean, he almost got hit by a car. But anyway, so he did that. So what I did is immediately, I just put a smile on my face. I put my hand up, and through the windshield, I went, sorry. And he immediately went, no problem. Right? And it's as if what I did is I reset his frame. Instead of buying into his premise, I kind of reset it. And sometimes it's as simple as doing something like that.
Well, let's talk about influence. You referenced influence earlier. What is the Bob Burg view and definition of influence? Because it's throughout this book.
Well, on a very, very basic level, influence is simply the ability to move a person or persons to a desired action, usually within the context of a specific goal. What influence is not is push. Influence is pull. You never hear people say, well, that's Skip. He is so influential. He has a lot of push with people. No, they'd say he has a lot of pull with people, because that's what influence is. It's pull. It's an attraction. Great influencers attract people to themselves and to their ideas. And they do this, again, not through pushing their will on others or being pushy, but through pull, attracting people. Now, that's influence. What I call ultimate influence is simply the ability to get the results you want from others while helping them feel genuinely good about themselves, about the situation, and about you. And the person who can do that, they're 9 steps ahead of the game in a 10-step game.
Great definition. What about the GoGiveEr? So the GoGiveEr seems to have taken a life on its own. Everyone seems to get copies and give it to somebody else and kind of pass the word along, which is how I got it. And what is it about that book that you've seen, and you've talked about it all over the world, that resonates with so many people? Is there one thing? Do people see themselves in it? Do they just inspired? What is it about that book?
Well, it's a story. It's a business parable. And fortunately, I got to work with a wonderful, wonderful co-author and the lead storyteller, John David Mann. And I think, in a sense, we know that stories connect. We often hear, facts tell, stories sell. I don't know if the stories sell, but stories connect. And from that point, now you can communicate your message. And I think what it did with the GoGiveEr, with the 5 laws that we had in there, it allowed people to operate in a way that they wanted to operate. It gave them permission to operate in a way that was service-based. You know, people genuinely are good people, and they want to do what's right. They want to make a lot of money, which is fine, and they intuitively, I think, understand that in a free market-based economy, again, the amount of money you make is simply directly proportional to how many people you're able to serve, as well as how well you serve them. You don't need to be J.R. Ewing. I guess I'm giving my age because that was from a long time back. You know, you don't need to be the root, and in fact, you know, that's typically more harmful than anything else. You need to find a way to not only provide value, but communicate that value to your prospects, customers, and clients. And to the degree that you do that and serve others, that's the degree that you've created the environment to be able to receive. And I think people wanted to know that was not only okay, but the best way to do it. Now, here's the interesting thing. You know, there's nothing in that book that John and I made up. I mean, we may have named the 5 laws certain things and presented them a certain way, but this is what successful people have been using for however long there's been market economies, okay? And so what happened was our early adopters, so to speak, these were the people already doing this. These were the you know, the CEOs and the influencers and the great leaders and what they would do is they would get the book, they would, you know, email John and let us know how, but then what they were doing is they'd pass that along to others. So, you know, not only would they maybe have me come in to speak to their organizations, but they'd buy, you know, hundreds of books. Some of them bought thousands of books because what happened is they knew that it was sort of that third-party credibility. You know how it is. They can be. We told them nothing. The book tells them nothing more than these people were telling their people. But when it comes from a third party, sometimes it's. And so then we'd start hearing 6 months later from these people who, wow, their businesses had changed and now they're profitable. And I got this book, by the way, from, you know, somebody who was already very successful. So we loved knowing that, and it shouldn't have been a surprise, but it kind of was.
It's an endless referral.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you so much for talking with me. This
Skip,
was great.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you.